Hi everybody, it's April. Welcome to my channel. I am, as I promised, showing you 3 ways today to open a little bit more in your will pose, to actually be able to expand in order to get up into the will pose if you already have the strength. Maybe what you're struggling with is arms, your back, perhaps it's your hip flexors. So today I'm going to go through all 3 of those and I'll show you one pose at a time. And I would highly recommend adding these to your practice, whether it's actually in a sequence or outside of a sequence, like an exercise. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. If you didn't watch last week's video, I'll go ahead and show you how to get into will pose. And from there, I will show you the movements that I highly suggest to do in order to achieve your will pose. So in your will pose, we will start with our bums on the ground, feet about hip width apart, and we're going to start on our back. The way to get to will pose is through bridge. So bringing the heels as close to the hips as possible. Walk them in, walk them in, walk them in until they're flat, hip width apart. We'll plant our palms so we can start to press into the ground, lifting our hips up through the air. And from here, make sure your hair is out of the way. You place your hands next to your ears. So the biggest key, I would say, is bringing those elbows in, and then go ahead and press into the feet. Lift the hips a little higher. Start to press into the hands. Head comes to the ground first if you don't have the strength to go all the way through, and then press up through that will pose, opening up your abdomen, pressing through the glutes, opening those arms, and pressing away from the ground. And then from here, you'll tuck your chin to lower, start to bend the knees, bring yourself all the way down and onto the back. So that is will pose. All right, so the first pose, yoga pose, I would like to show you in order to get to that will pose opening. You're going to start on your hands and knees and bring yourself into a low lunge position. So let's use the right foot first. Coming into that runner's lunge position, make sure you walk that back knee as far back as you feel comfortable. If it's too far back and it feels really tight, go ahead and move it a little bit forward. We're going to take our left palm, we're going to plant it either next to our foot, but I actually recommend planting it a little bit in front of the foot. So about half of the hand is still in line with the foot, the rest of it is going a little further. And then we're going to take that right arm, reach forward, up and back, opening ourselves up a little bit more in this hip flexor here on the left. So you notice how I'm kind of leaning into my left hip just a tiny bit, bringing more of my weight into the left side. Then you'll start to bend in that back knee. And sometimes people are like this. They're right on their kneecap, and it really hurts. So make sure you have cushioning if that's you. Otherwise, if you're a little more forward, and that's why I recommended bringing the hand forward, then you're a little bit more on the top of the knee on the thigh. And then you'll reach for your foot. If you do have any trouble with this, you can always use a strap hooked around your foot to actually hold yourself. So say you're here. That way you can still do the progression, but you have a little bit of help. So otherwise we're here, we're holding. And then the next progression would be to actually make sure your right toes are pointing out slightly, maybe about 30 degrees. And then you'll come down either to your elbow or to a block on your elbow. And then you get a little bit more hip flexor opening here. I would recommend holding for a minimum of 20 to 30 seconds. That is roughly around 5 to 8 breaths or so. So deep inhale, exhale, that's 1 breath. Make sure they're deep because you will need that deep breath. Okay, so that is the posture. Like I said, you can use props as well. If you have any questions, if you want me to actually do a video showing you how to do the props for that pose, let me know. I am super happy to do that. Leave it below in the comments. The next posture that I'm going to show you is dolphin pose. Everybody hates this pose, but it's really good for opening your shoulders. The key here is going to be to keep your elbows in line with the shoulders. A lot of people, once they place their elbows on the ground, their elbows start to go like this and they flare out. So if that is you, you can actually use a strap wrapped around your forearms, and then you'll actually tighten it so that you make sure your elbows are nice and in line with your shoulders, okay? Make sure they're not too close and they're not too far, but they're nice and in line. Otherwise, if you want to muscle it out, then we'll go ahead and go into the posture. Hands come onto the ground, toes tuck. We'll find our downward facing dog first. Maybe walk it out if it's first thing in the morning or you haven't done anything for the day. And then what we want to do is bring the right elbow down and kind of bring it in at an angle. Bring the left elbow down and in. And you'll notice once you do, in line with your shoulders. So this is step one. What you want to do next, bring your head between your shoulders and actively press into those elbows, wedging yourself against the mat, against the rubber of your mat. So make sure it's not a slippery surface, and really bring that head as far between your shoulders as possible. I would say, again, hold this for a good 20 to 30 seconds. Keep breathing. Maybe knees are slightly bent. That's totally fine. And then lower down. So once you get to that 20 or 30 second mark, take a break for another 20 to 30 seconds. Repeat this anywhere from 3 to 5 times each. And I would say same thing for the first one, 3 to 5 times each, both sides. The final pose that I would like to show you is camel pose. And for this, you can also use blocks. I'll actually show that progression. All right, so I have both of my blocks. I want to place them starting at the highest setting just to see where I'm at, okay? So this is not to say that you are incapable of doing it. This is not anything more than bringing the ground to you while your body learns how to open up properly and finding that foundation and really just avoiding injury. So this is why we use yoga blocks. I use them all the time, not for some of the more basic postures, but once I get into back bends or arm balances or anything like that, I actually do use these blocks. And you can even use it in dolphin pose as well. Okay, so go ahead and place the blocks probably about where your ankles are. So here's my heel, my ankle's here, and then you place the block about where your ankle is on both sides. Go ahead and come up into a half kneeling position. Hands come at the lower back, so bringing fingertips up, and then palm is right at the top of the glute at the base of the lower back. Bring the elbows in, and again, this is another place where you could use a strap, and you could actually have it here so you're nice and tight. You may need a second pair of hands if you do try that though. Okay, so elbows squeezing in, opening that chest. You want to press the hips forward and then lift those upper ribs towards the sky as if someone has a rope underneath your scapulas and is pulling you towards the ceiling. So looking up and pulling your body up. Then begin to continue to press those hips forward with the heels of your palms. Breathe. And then perhaps you place one hand on the block. You may notice you're pressing a little bit more forward. And then the other hand on the block on the other side. So hip width apart with the knees. If you don't do hip width apart, you may find this to be a little more uncomfortable, so make sure that your knees are in proper position. The second progression is going to be hands on the feet, but with the toes tucked. So if you do the high one, you want to do the medium setting first. Go ahead and try that, followed by hands on the heels. Because if you go ahead and go flat with the blocks, it's pretty much going to be lower than your heels. So the next place is your heels with toes tucked. So if you don't need the blocks any longer, place them off to the side. Again, hip width apart with those knees. Hands, fingers pointing up, palms at the lower back. Tuck your toes to begin. Press the hips forward. Lift those upper ribs up towards the sky. And then from here, as you press forward, 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 and lift up, 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 then you'll go ahead and swim the left arm back, open that palm so you can place it on your heel. And then swim the right arm back. And then you're externally rotating your shoulders here. So lifting and pressing, open those shoulders, but also pulling them back, squeezing those scapulas together, squeezing the glutes, totally fine here too, and keep lifting that upper torso towards the sky. If this is where you feel comfortable, try to do this for about 20 to 30 seconds. And then the last step would be to untuck your toes, one at a time, and then keep pressing those hips forward. So we're not leaning back here, but we're pressing forward and opening and lifting towards the ceiling. To come out, hands come back to the lower back, press yourself forward, and lower the hips down. That is the last pose. Like I said, for all the other ones, 20 to 30 seconds for each pose. I would say you can work up to a minute, but really once you get to about the 30-second mark, I think you're pretty good as long as you do multiple sets and put those in your practice several times a week. So anywhere from 2 to 3 times a week, and then try maybe a will pose flow so that you work through opening the entire body, and then test it out. See how your will pose is doing. Take a little video of yourself so you can actually see your progress. So maybe take a video first before you start these exercises, and then afterwards, after you've been practicing for a couple weeks or a few weeks consistently, take another video, see how your will pose has progressed. If you like this video and you want more just like this, go ahead and leave a comment below. If you would like a flow based around will pose, I actually have one. I will list that here at the top. It's a heart opening pose. And if you would like any other flows, let me know. I'm here to serve you, and I will see you again next week. All right, everyone. See you later. Bye. Peace out.